With all the latest market news of Binance in the cryptocurrency space, well, Terra Luna Classic feels like it's just bubbling under the surface. Are we realistically going to start to see an aggressive move up in the price prediction? And ultimately, why am I still holding on long-term to Terra Luna Classic? We're going to talk about it in this video, as well as take a look at some price predictions coming for 2025. So let's get into it. Like I said, the market currently sitting 1.13 trillion. Just looks like we're starting to turn the green in the last hour. You see here Bitcoin 0.5%, Ethereum back above 1700. And again, we got that news on Binance being sued. If you haven't watched that video, definitely go and check it out. I'll leave it down in the description so you can go and watch it. But we are starting to see the market just move. If I click refresh, we're going to get our exact position 2.42% down on the last 24 hours. Well, Terra Luna Classic, no exception. Here on the daily chart, we can see this push down. We have actually flipped bearish on the daily chart. So let's see what happens with that, down 3.5%, currently trading in the 12s range. Now we were, if we go in a bit nearer, we go to the 4-hour chart, we actually were trading down here in the 11.7s. And I guess the point here is that we do see people eat the dips quite significantly up. Now, we saw some positive movement up as Zaradar came out and started talking about what they were doing, as Edward Kin feels like the ignition has been relit under them in terms of what they're bringing. We want to see some price action. We want to ultimately see a positive step forward. Now, you always have to bear in mind, though, when it comes to Terra Luna Classic, the cheaper the price, the higher the amount we burn. We know we've got the Binance burn coming very, very soon, as well as other parts of that. We know we've got the cremation coin team. And again, this isn't sponsored by them, but we know they are burning at the same time, and as well as other tokens. We can actually take a look here at the top burners for Terra Luna Classic. You can see there that we have Binance, the Burn Tax, Mexi, Lunatics token, and you see there number 7 being cremation coin. As we come down here, we are starting to see a sentiment around burning Luna Classic. We can never forget that ultimately this is what we need to really drive. But what have we got coming up? What is the price predictions long term? Now, I talk about this on my live stream, 4 p.m. Eastern every single night, right here on YouTube, how Luna Classic for me is a long-term hold. After we ran to the 6s and I told everybody, take some profits, this is the right thing, we're going to consolidate back down, then my view has always been it becomes a long-term play for me. It becomes something that I can just have. I'm going to stake it. I'm going to support the ecosystem, and ultimately the long-term vision and what they are trying to bring with Terra Luna Classic, I'm totally okay with. Now, that might not be the same for every single person out there, but that's certainly where I currently sit. Now, what this does is take us through a little bit about exactly what happens. Currently trading at the 12.19 range. We are just literally underneath that. And again, we've seen things around proof of work, which we know. And again, I always stress this, and I just don't think this information is known enough out there, but our ecosystem, our blockchain is super cheap and super quick. We see these massive developments of Ethereum having to upgrade to proof of work, proof of stake. We also see the EVM network upgrade to Polygon Matic to make that even quicker. And again, Terra Luna Classic is a super, super fast ecosystem. The interesting part now, though, is all around stablecoins. And is there a market ultimately for an algorithmic stablecoin? Now, we know we have to tread very carefully as we talk about that, in particular when we really start to talk about Terra Luna Classic and USTC. However, I think more and more as we see the introduction of CBDCs and certainly the development from our governments around CBDCs, then our algorithmic stablecoin could absolutely be something that the community of cryptocurrency is looking for. But long term, what are we talking about for Terra Luna Classic? You have to take these with a pinch of salt. They are not factual, they are assumptions, and they are based upon what people believe could happen. But and it says, before you read further, you should understand that predictions of different cryptocurrency platforms and analysis vary wildly, as different analysis rely on different sets of metrics to arrive to their conclusion. A good number of times, these predictions can go wildly wrong. At the same time as when you look at the chart on Bitcoin, we would have absolutely said we would have continued to move up in price, and then we saw this big spike on the back. We are ultimately and always will be fundamentally driven by news stories and market sentiment. But what does it say? Well, Telegon predicts the minimum and maximum price of LUNC in 2025, 208 and 1028 respectively. So you'll see there's quite a different disparity between the two prices. Again, it's all going to depend on macroeconomics and equally the build out of Luna Classic. Can we start to push into 200, 300, 500, $1 billion in volume with real utility, purpose and community behind it? then that's going to ultimately drive those variances in price. Other experts offer a previous performance of LUNC predict an average price of 1015. Coinpedia, however, not so optimistic, and that predicts the price could be at 202846. I think ultimately what we can say is a lot of people long term believe certainly in the next 12 to 18 months we could lose a 0, if not 2. And then looking a bit further, and again, when you start looking into 2030, you do have to obviously be mindful, but some predicting that we could even pull back, equally pull back to something like 2002 or 2027. Some even believe we could be as high as $5. Now, you've got to bear in mind, if we were to even think about $5, how that journey would then play out. A significant amount of people invested, not a lot of money, would make millions. So that would be a very long path. And he's saying we're talking 7 years in the future. I even think it could be longer. So always take those with a pinch of salt. A lot we know can happen in cryptocurrency in a very short space of time. But let me know your predictions down in the comments. 2025, where do you think we're going to be at the start of that? January 2025. Again, we're only a year or so away from that. Going to be interesting to see. Like I said, long term, holding Terra Luna Classic. If anything changes, we'll let you know right here on the 2-Bit Crypto channel. So be sure to subscribe, turn the notification bell on to stay up to date with everything going on, and I'll see you all in the next video. Take care.